Strap into your seats and get ready. It's time for the Mortarpod.
Hey everybody, Alex from SeemsGoodMagic.com here. Welcome to this week's episode of the Mortarpod, your weekly video podcast for custom Magic the Gathering sets. This week, got a good one, Robin Williams film from the early 90s, and I think most Magic players probably are around the age at this point where this was a pretty iconic film in their lives. Yes, that's right, it's Hook. Hook, yes. And there's quite a few celebrities in this movie, too. While making this set, I discovered that Glenn Close was one of the male pirates in it, which was just really strange. And then David Crosby was one of the pirates, too. So, and Phil Collins was a detective. So there's all sorts of cameos from just random people in it. And the Glenn Close one is especially strange, since you don't even know it's her because she's dressed like an old man pirate. So very strange cameo on that part. And I totally didn't realize Phil Collins was the detective either. But if you don't remember Hook, it's kind of a strange take on the Peter Pan story. Robin Williams used to be in Never Never Land with the Lost Boys, and then he leaves. And he basically comes to, what our reality is, our universe, and forgets about Never Never Land and becomes like a normal, just sort of dude. And eventually he goes back and he remembers and he becomes Peter Pan again. So it was a really cool movie. It was a really cool take on Peter Pan and highly enjoyable. So I recommend it. But let's get into the set here. Let's look at some of these cards. So we've got Peter Pan, to start it off, played by Robin Williams. He is 3 mana, 1 colorless, a green, and a white for a 2/3 legendary human rogue creature. I figured the Lost Boys were probably rogues. They're a little bit roguish in the sense that, they're out on their own, kind of taking stuff from the pirates when they can, wreaking a little bit of havoc on each other, just doing kid stuff. I feel like kids are kind of roguish a little bit. But, so Peter Pan's 3 mana, 2/3. He has the mechanic of the set, which is called Bangarang. Used a few times in the movie. Bangarang means killer or great, stuff like that. But as a mechanic, it is whenever this creature attacks, attacking creatures get +1/+0 and gain first strike until end of turn. And then Peter Pan, of course, you pay 1 and a white, and Peter Pan gains flying until end of turn. So actually, when he returns to Never Never Land, he has forgotten how to fly. So they sort of help him remember, and he's back to old original Peter Pan, who's very courageous and an awesome fighter and all that. So kind of a little bit of a Lord-ish ability with Bangarang, but it only works when attacking. But +1/+0 and first strike to all your creatures when attacking is pretty strong. So I think it's a pretty good mechanic. And yeah, Peter Pan would be a pretty efficient beater. Not quite worthy of Mythic, I don't think, since he's not outrageously good, but certainly a good rare. Next we have Tinkerbell. Of course, everybody remembers Tinkerbell, but played by Julia Roberts. And she is 1 blue for a 1/2 fairy rogue creature. She's a rare. She has flying, and whenever Tinkerbell attacks, target creature you control gains flying until end of turn. So she's actually a pretty strong rare, since she's 1 mana with evasion, plus she gets to attack and give something else evasion. So I think definitely worthy of legendary status and definitely worthy of rare status, but once again, probably not quite powerful enough to be a mythic. Okay, next we have the Lost Boy, and the Lost Boys are the the group of kids that inhabit that universe, and they help old man Peter Pan try and remember when he was Peter Pan. And Lost Boy is 1 green for a common human rogue creature. It has tap. Add 1 to your mana pool, you gain 1 life. So essentially, they're little green pristine talismans, which I think is still fine. I think it would actually be a pretty awesome little ramp creature for the most part. But I definitely think it's not overpowered, and it could be at common in green, because green is awesome at ramp creatures. Next we have Rufio, who has sort of been leading the Lost Boys in Peter Pan's absence, and they all respect and sort of fear Rufio because he's pretty awesome. He's one of the awesome Lost Boys. So Rufio is a red and a green for a 1/2 rare human rogue creature. He also has Bangarang, and then you can pay 3 colorless, and Rufio must attack this turn if able. Any player may activate this ability. So the reason he has that ability is, if you'll recall, at the end, Captain Hook basically challenges Rufio or taunts him to come over and fight him, and ends up killing Rufio, which at the time was probably pretty traumatic for me as a kid, if you think about it. It's like Rufio was played probably by like a 10 to 13-year-old kid, and he ends up getting stabbed by this grown man and killed, you know? I feel like they probably wouldn't do that in movies too much anymore, especially, well, I mean, they do it in movies, but I don't know if they do it in like this kind of movie where it's, you know, the lighthearted family film. But yeah, Rufio is murdered by Captain Hook, and much to Peter Pan's sadness. So Peter Pan goes on to challenge Captain Hook after that. But yes, that is what that must attack this turn if able ability is referring to on Rufio. Rufio, a little bit of you know, turmoil in the beginning with Peter Pan and their relationship, because Rufio doesn't want to give up his sort of leadership status to Peter Pan. But Peter Pan eventually, when he finds his way, he basically makes Rufio stand down to him, and Rufio does oblige and listen to him. Next we have Captain Hook, played by Dustin Hoffman, and just an excellent performance by Dustin Hoffman. Really memorable character, awesome lines, really well done. I loved this character. Just looks awesome too. So Captain Hook is 2 colorless, 2 black for this is the only mythic of the set, I believe, for a 3/2 human pirate creature. I was hoping they did have pirate, because I remember pirate cards from the past in Magic, but I didn't know if they had their own creature type or if they just had pirate in the title. Turns out there is, in fact, a pirate creature type, so perfect for this. Captain Hook has Intimidate. Other pirate creatures you control have Intimidate, because, you know, you're part of Captain Hook's crew. Obviously, everyone's going to be intimidated by you. And then he has 3 black, destroy target creature blocking or blocked by Captain Hook this turn. Now, this ability is referring to the fact that Captain Hook is very deceptive, and he makes you think that at a couple points in the movie, he sort of, I mean, he does some very deceptive things to get his kills. Like when he kills Rufio, he does it in kind of a shady way by calling him over. And then at the end, he kind of pretends that he's given up to Peter and that he just wants to live on his life. But then he pulls out like a secret weapon. So he's very crafty and tricky. And that's why he's got the destroy target creature. It's basically like a manipulation of your emotions, and then he kills you when you're not expecting it. Smee, the First Mate, played by Bob Hoskins, is the second Bob Hoskins appearance in a Mortarpod custom Magic set. He was also Eddie Valiant in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So Smee, the First Mate in this, 1 and a black for a 2/2 rare human pirate creature, and he has tap, regenerate target pirate creature you control. You can see in the picture it's him attaching the hook to Captain Hook's hand, and then the flavor text on Smee is, Smee, do something intelligent, and that's of course Captain Hook telling Smee to do something intelligent. So they kind of have a pretty funny dynamic in the movie, since there's just like a few times Captain Hook's like holding a gun to his head, and it's like, don't try and stop me, Smee. Don't try and stop me. Try and stop me, Smee. So he has this like, he can't even decide what he wants. He's definitely got some mental issues going on there. Next we have Hook's Marauder, and actually in this picture you can see David Crosby. Hook's Marauder is a common human pirate creature. I figured since I had a Lost Boy, I needed to have like one of Captain Hook's crewmen, one of his pirate folk. And Hook's Marauder is 2 and a black for a 2/3 common human pirate creature. And whenever Hook's Marauder attacks, defending player loses 1 life. So a very black ability. And 3 mana 2/3s are usually pretty good and limited. So I think this would actually be a pretty highly played limited card since he can potentially deal 3 damage a turn, which is very efficient for black. Next we have Boo Box Punishment. Now I mentioned earlier Glenn Close is in this movie. Very early on when you're first introduced to the crew and Captain Hook. Captain Hook, because he's so paranoid, believes that he's being betrayed by somebody on his own ship, and he basically corners the, dressed up Glenn Close and gets a innocent Glenn Close to admit that she was wrong. And then once he's gotten the pirate to admit that, he just puts him in the boo box, which he calls the boo box, which just terrifies the pirate. But apparently the boo box is a treasure chest with a little latch on it, and they toss in these scorpions inside of it, and it definitely kills whoever's inside that treasure box. So once again, kind of a dark little way to kill somebody in a kid's film. But they don't make movies like they used to, do they? Maybe I'm just old. Boo Box Punishment is 1 colorless and 2 black. It's a sorcery, uncommon, and its target creature's controller sacrifices it. So the flavor text is, "You made a boo-boo," which is what Captain Hook says to that pirate. But yes, this would actually be a pretty powerful card. I don't think it's overpowered, but it is a way in black to deal with Indestructible. Keep in mind, Dismember also dealt with Indestructible, so it's not like the first time it's ever done that. It also is a sorcery, so there's no fancy way to play this. You got to do it during your turn. It's very black color intensive since it's double black. It's 3 mana, so I don't think it's overpowered, but it is a pretty unique effect. Usually they don't have the target creature's controller sacrifices it very often, because it does deal with quite a few things. It also deals with, besides dealing with Indestructible, it also deals with Regenerate. Anytime they have to sacrifice it, they can't regenerate. So, yes, this would be a pretty highly played limited card for sure. Probably wouldn't necessarily make its way into Constructed. Maybe as a sideboard card against your opponent, your opposing Regenerate or Indestructible creatures. Next we have a Clock Smash. So I kind of forgot to mention in the beginning that Robin Williams, the only reason he goes back to Never Never Land is because he wants to rescue his children who have sort of vanished there. And his son, he has a very turbulent relationship with his son because, in our universe, Peter, I think his name's Peter Banning. He changes it from Peter Pan when he comes to our universe. And he's like, kind of a hotshot. I think he's like a hotshot lawyer or an accountant or something. Someone with a very busy job, so he doesn't spend enough time with his son. So they have a very turbulent relationship. And Captain Hook actually manipulates Peter Pan's son to sort of work against him. And he gets that by getting his son to smash a watch that his dad gave his son. So kind of a traumatic scene. Showing the, relationship issues they're having. But Clock Smash is 1 red sorcery. It's an uncommon. Destroy target artifact. Clock Smash deals 1 damage to target creature that artifact's controller controls. So similar to like Smash to Smithereens in that instead of dealing 3 damage to the player that controls the artifact, you're actually getting to deal 1 damage to a creature that artifact controller controls. So this would actually be, I think, a pretty highly playable card against, say, like an affinity deck, since you'd be able to probably, very likely, 2-for-1 them, being able to destroy one of the destroy their cranial plating and then kill whatever creature it was attached to, or something like that. So yes, I think Clock Smash would definitely see some sideboard play. Absolutely, probably not too much limited play. Next we have Thud Ball. So one of the Lost Boys is named Thudbutt, and he has this move. I couldn't understand him during the movie, so I had to look at the script to see what he's saying. But apparently he's yelling, "Thud Ball!" So at the end, sort of the most climactic scene of the movie where they attack Captain Hook's pirate ship, all the Lost Boys show up with Peter Pan to rescue the children. And Thudbutt does this move called Thudball, where he like pulls his legs up behind his head. It's clearly not his legs, but it's funny that they kind of made it look like that. You can see in the picture. And he rolls down the stairs in like a ball form, and he just like knocks all the pirates down like a bowling pin. So I definitely wanted that to be a card. And Thudball is 4 colorless and a white. It's a sorcery, an uncommon. Tap all creatures target player controls. So you don't see this very often in white, but it's actually not out of white's color pie, since white do get creatures that tap down creatures as well as spells that tap down creatures. They just very seldom get anything that would tap all creatures target player controls, which is why I made it a sorcery, so you can't do it at the end of your opponent's turn. You have to cast it on your turn. I made it expensive, it's 5 mana, and I made it an uncommon, so you don't see this effect all the time. And finally, we have Crocodile Clock. Now, at the end, when I was talking about earlier, Captain Hook, he basically gives up to Peter Pan after he's been bested. And Peter Pan, unfortunately shows his back to Captain Hook, who pulls the weapon out and is about to kill Peter Pan. But a little bit of backstory. Captain Hook got his hand bit off by the crocodile. It's either that or Peter Pan cut his hand off and fed it to the crocodile, one or the other. But that very much traumatized Captain Hook, who went on to kill that crocodile and turn it into a clock. And he's also had an aversion to clocks ever since then. Every clock around Captain Hook, he has to smash. He doesn't want to see any working clocks. He's got some serious mental PTSD, basically, when it comes to clocks and crocodiles. So what a more fitting way to kill him than the croc who ate his hand earlier in the movie ends up falling on him, coming loose, and falling directly on him and eating him, and sort of a very coincidental, moment of triumph for all the Lost Boys. So Crocodile Clock is 4 colorless. It's an uncommon artifact, sort of inspired by Goblin Boom Keg in Fate Reforged. Whenever 2 or more creatures attack, you may sacrifice Crocodile Clock. If you do, it deals 3 damage to target creature or player. So I kind of like that there's ways for your opponent to play around it, but if you have creatures, you can also attack and then sacrifice it to deal some damage. So not super difficult to activate, but enough activation where it's a little difficult to play, which usually when it comes to, colorless artifact direct damage like this, you have to do it in a more calculated way, since you're sort of invading on, red's color pie a little bit. So yes, Captain Hook is defeated, and Peter Pan returns with his 2 children to our universe, since he has his family there. But he's a much better person. I believe he quits his job and spends more time with his kids. So very lighthearted, awesome ending. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I hope you're digging the Fate Reforged drafts. I started doing 8/4s again. And not much success so far, but it's okay. It's still a good time. And hope you're enjoying the videos. So we'll see you next week.